Welcome to the Perspectives with Catherine Toon podcast.
All right, everybody. Welcome to Perspectives with Catherine Toon. And I have a very near and dear brother who I just love and adore, him and his wife, Carrie, Matt Pandel. Welcome. So glad to have you.
Thank you very much. It's always a lot of fun.
Yeah, wonderful. So we're going to talk today about the church as a living, breathing organism. And I know this has got a big zing on you, but I wanted to maybe go through a little bit of your bio for people who may not know you. If they don't know you, they need to get to know you. I'll just read it from what you gave me. It says, in addition to his work as president and professor of Trinitarian theology and spiritual direction at Global Grace Seminary, Dr. Pandel is a published author, maintains a private consulting practice, and is the director of the Unconditional Grace Ministerial Association and serves as the regional mental health policy advisor. He resides in picturesque Shenandoah Valley of Virginia with his wife and best friend, Carrie. And I love that because what you had listed before was so much. It was like, okay, we're just going to, but you are doing so much and it's amazing. And it's just an honor to have you and just fun. So,
Well,
yeah.
I shifted gears in my thinking. I'm 43. And around 35, I kind of shifted thinking to what I get to do as opposed to what I have to do. And that was a turning point for me. That was a shift to obligation and necessity and trying to juggle a lot of really good things to, no, this is something I get to do. And I got to take care of myself in the process and take care of those near and dear to me. But it's a privilege. It's something that we're invited into.
Yeah. And that's so good. And so good for our mental health to make that shift, right? Out of
Absolutely.
obligation. We're not sons and we're not servants obliged to serve.
Yep.
We are sons and daughters who get to serve where we're called to serve. That means, and I love that because that means sometimes saying no to some really good things in favor of the best that God is calling us to do. But you do many things so very well. So we were talking before you came on about this concept of the church as a living, breathing organism that is ever evolving into a pure, kinder, and more loving reflection of Christ. Oh, that just makes me happy. So feel free to sort of dive into that. You've been camping in this. What has God been showing you? What has been stirring up within you? This is gorgeous stuff.
One of the things I've noted, and I think it's maybe a workplace hazard more than anything else. You just get used to doing it. When I encounter any kind of a system or engage, watching individuals engage with one another, I can have a habit of almost going into diagnostician mode where I'm pinpointing what's motivating some of the internal discussions and what I've noticed just kind of traversing around some of the different groups that are out there that are really proclaiming this message and trying to develop community around it. There are so many traumas and so many hurts that a lot of conversations weren't being heard because it was just mutual triggering. This comment triggered this, which triggered this, and so things are escalating, and it's taking admins and some of these groups to step in just to say, everybody take a breath for a second. You're saying the same thing. You're arguing over the meaning of one specific word that if we can just hash that out really quickly, you're actually on the same page. So it got me doing kind of an introspective, and again, I'm only 43. I'm by no means old, but I'm at that point where you do transition from thinking about trying to obtain something to, okay, what do I do with it when I, to a degree, obtained it? Now, what's the next phase of this?
Mhm.
And so it's made me revisit each phase of my journey, specifically my faith journey,
Mhm.
that I've been very fortunate in that I've not been what you would call a church hopper, as in like I didn't just whimsically move through these streams haphazardly, but I was able to experience a lot of them in very intimate, connected ways where I was in these phases for a lengthy period of time.
Mhm.
So I got to see the good, the bad, and the ugly that exists in each of the traditions. But when traversing from one to another, trying to stay tethered to that which endures, trying to take the beauty and the promise that was found there with me through the rest of the journey. I was raised Methodist and initially took vows as a Lutheran.
Mhm. I did too.
Transitioned, yeah, transitioned into Anglican ministry shortly after that, and then I meet and later marry a charismatic. Um, and so now I have the word that kind of encapsulates where I'm at in my journey now. It's called convergence. It's just this idea that we accepted a lot of either ors for what should have been an and.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
we threw away sacramentality or liturgy or form or beauty in exchange for active, present, kairos type um, expediency of God just jumping into the moment and manifesting so beautifully. When if he's everywhere, he's going to do all these things. I'm a little Protestant boy in France on a high school field trip. We were there for like a week and a half on like a school trip, and I'm in the Cathedral of Notre Dame in
Mhm.
Paris, which they're doing a lot of film recording in there at the time. And so we were the last group they let enter before they shut the doors to let the film crew get set up. So it's a
Yeah.
massive structure, right? It's huge.
It is. It
And there's,
appears to having
you've
been
been,
there. It's massive.
yeah, it is massive. We have nothing to compare this to. Even if you go to National Cathedral in DC or something, that's the closest we got. And it's still just a drop in the ocean compared to this thing.
Exactly. Exactly.
There's maybe 25 people at this point in the
Mm.
entire building,
Oh,
which in
wow.
a cavern, it's like 25 people in a Walmart.
Right.
You're alone.
Right.
And,
Exactly.
and this little Protestant boy has the most significant spiritual experience of my life
Oh, wow.
just sitting in here listening to this choir practicing that's about to be recorded. Again,
Wow.
they're stage propping. This isn't meant to be a spiritual encounter. They're working on the acoustics. Um, and yet in that moment, I feel the presence of God
Mm.
so strongly and so tangibly,
Wow.
I can't stand, and I end up collapsing to the
Wow.
floor. And I don't know how long I was just kind of sitting there. I have no idea.
Mm.
So I take this Protestant upbringing,
Mhm.
and I mean mainstream Protestantism, which directly breaks off of Catholicism, only
Right.
to have this meaningful experience in a cathedral,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and figuring out what to do with that. It is that began a series of questions that I think I've never stopped asking,
I
and
love
so it's been this journey into to what all can we experience of this and
Yes.
rather than false choices that really don't exist.
Oh, that's so good. It's so encompassing and open to possibility of how God is moving in ways throughout the whole. Like where is he not? And then what does that look like in expression through, through different segments of the church, through different segments of humanity? What does that look like? And being open to that, and the beauty and the power of it, because it's God.
Yep.
It's God. It's God until it's not, and it's
Yep.
not until it is, right? And so
Yep.
what is that? And then what is that in us individually, and what is that corporately? And how do we come together to become greater than kind of our individual little camps and our individual little whatevers? Yeah. It's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Absolutely. I noticed really when first coming into this more beautiful, more inclusive gospel that there were these voices that in other worlds would never talk with one another.
Right.
You got so, I mean, Steve McVeigh, who I absolutely adore,
Oh,
and was a major first step for me. I only read about him because he was routinely cited in a book I was reading that was contradicting the things that Steve teaches, and I walked away with actually think they made Steve's argument pretty good. So I'm going to look this guy up some more.
wow, good job. Good support for
Yeah,
Steve.
yeah, the Spirit's going to do what the Spirit's going to do. But you got Steve, who is former Southern Baptist. That's his background, and he endlessly quotes Robert Capon.
Right.
who
Right.
to the day he passed was an Episcopal priest.
Right. I love it.
Um,
Yeah.
and they're all quoting Richard Rohr, who to this day is a Franciscan priest, and yet they're quoting Paul Young coming out of the Missionary Alliance movement. And that what if there's a way
Mhm.
that we can, from a place of union, from a place of we are not separate, we are not disconnected, we aren't distant from one another, to whatever degree we feel that, it's just that, it's a temporal, transient feeling.
Right.
And if we can accept that from the get-go, that we are talking to brethren who are in the exact same room as us, there's
Mhm.
just parts that to me are dim, I can't see in that corner,
Mhm.
and they live in that corner.
Wow.
It is bright as day to them. Yet where I'm at over here, that's opaque. They can't quite see through it
Right.
very. You can see it's there. The objects are kind of there, but what if the goal of unity is actually to originate in union and
Mhm.
discourse from that position, from that fixed location of nothing we say or do here removes us, restricts us, disconnects us. So from that place of freedom, what kind of conversations can we have with one another that are on that even playing field of we're not here to convert one another. We're here
Right.
to understand. And in that process of understanding, we may very well be converted to some new ideas.
Exactly. Well, because there's treasure. There's treasure in each movement, camp. There's treasure.
Yes.
And so each one has a different revel, and we need that. We need one another, and we need the treasure that's inside one another, but we cannot receive it if we don't honor it and we're not open to it. And we're fearful or entrenched. And God is, I see him kind of loosening us up in our positions that
Yep.
we're taking. Yeah. Yeah.
It-
Wow.
well, and you said something there that this loosening up of positions,
Mhm.
I think he does this individually and he also does it corporately. He does it communally, might be a better word. He does it among the body as a whole. I'm always amazed when, I'm encountering someone on social media or in my community here in Virginia who is going to be referencing a theme or something that the Father's been speaking to me.
Right.
And yet we've not talked about it. We know none of the same people. We're not influenced by the same podcasts or anything. How is it? Well, because it's just something that the Spirit is doing and it's
Mhm.
kind of released for whoever wants to consume it. It's like going over to your grandmother's house for dinner or something. There's a litany of stuff on the table. You can kind of pick and choose what you want, but it all came from the same hands. The same person made it all, regardless of which portions you choose to consume or not.
It's beautiful. Yeah, and it's all available. I love that picture as really like a banquet. What are we consuming?
Yeah.
And it's interesting because if we take that analogy further, when you're kind of like you are what you eat. So what we consume literally transforms us.
Yep.
And so we literally emit that. We literally irradiate that. We literally embody that in a way. It's kind of the word made flesh in us. And then as we're representing that revelation, that understanding, and then communing with one another, all we do is edify one another in this revelation of who God is, who we are as a body, all of that. And so it's beautiful. I love that. But yeah, what we feed on changes us. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. One of my favorite stories is Timothy Cardinal Dolan is the Catholic Archbishop of New York. And he is this very gregarious figure. He's a big guy. He's loud. He's very funny. He easily could have been a stand-up comic. The Lord could have called him that direction instead of the priesthood. And he is this fascinating figure. And the story goes, he is at a Martin Luther King Day celebration event at a church in Harlem. And it's like an African Methodist Episcopal
Mhm.
historical black church.
Right,
And
right.
he's an invited guest along with tons of dignitaries in the community, politicians, everybody's there. And he's given a very nice place of honor in the front row, and he graciously takes it. And he is a Catholic. And so if we think of everything that the worship style of Catholicism is, it's not African Methodist Episcopal, right?
Mhm.
He is on the front row
Mhm.
and his hands are in the air. He is engaged in the process. The God is speaking to him, moving through him. He is participating
Mhm.
in this experience. And in the back, where the reporters are all kind of quarantined off, is a member of his congregation. because although, a cardinal archbishop, he does have an actual congregation he's
Mhm.
titularly responsible for. And so afterwards, she knows him well, so she walks up to him to kind of tease him, and says, Cardinal Dolan, what was that? And he said, what are you talking about? Wait, what's the problem? She goes, now I go to your church.
Yeah.
We don't worship that way, and yet you seemed very comfortable up there. And again, because he's such a comic, when people like that get serious, it
Yeah.
like quiets everything around them because something's coming.
Mhm.
And he basically tells her, just because I encountered God first in a confessional does not mean I believe that is the only place he can be found or is located. I
Mm.
found him here because he clearly is on display here. It would be to deny my father
Mm.
to pretend that because this doesn't look like what my tradition expects it to look like
Right.
is
Mhm.
any less him.
Wow.
And
Well,
what a perspective.
Yeah. Wow. That's such humility, and it's honoring, and then it's beautiful. It's entering into this unique expression that I'm not used to or whatever, but I'm embracing it. Who Because this is an expression of you, Jesus, through my glorious brothers and sisters. And then I'm an invited, because that is also an honor to be invited,
Yeah.
in this humility, taking this place graciously to be invited into that. That's an honor. That's like being taken into the living room of, of someone maybe you don't know, but just kind of
Yeah.
embraced and then participating. It's beautiful. That's
And
such,
what a reflection of Jesus is that? Where
yeah.
if that's not kenosis, if that's not that cruciform emptying love, I don't know what is. Where what does a Martin Luther King Day celebration in Harlem in a historically black church, one of the oldest historically black churches in the country, what do they have to gain
Mm.
by inviting a white Catholic bishop, who Archbishop Cardinal, who, if I remember right, like is from the Bronx or something? It's like what's the incentive other than we are emptying of ourselves and what we feel, what we could argue we're entitled to, what our rights are, that we have a right to be understood to know. We're going to invite him into our space with no preconditions. It's not like they put him on the front row and forcibly made him stand up and lifted his hands in the air or
Right.
something. It was that we're inviting you to our space, and what you choose to do when you are in this space, that is between you and God. We have done our emptying by
Yeah.
making sure there is a place for you in this space.
Wow. Wow. And what a challenge to us. I mean, how do we make a place for people whose understanding, whose worship of Jesus, whose understanding of all those things, and making space for that, even in places where, honestly, we may disagree. But we're making space because you're a brother and sister. Like, I mean, I regularly disagree with myself, but I
Yep.
have to embrace me. And so, right. And so, with even just in family, we regularly disagree, but we're family. So we're
Yep.
just doing the family thing. And for eternity, we are family. And so we get to do the family thing even in the midst of disagreement because we're not rallying around a doctrine, we're not rallying around a form, we're rallying around Christ and that. And that's
Absolutely.
just beautiful. And what that means for us in expression. Yeah.
And
Wow.
a lot of my teaching time lately has been spent. Church history is my field. I love it. I've always loved it. Of course, as a Lutheran, it began in 1517 when Luther nails, and everything before that was a mistake. We
Right.
focus on that point forward. But getting into the early church and the innate nature of how we remain tethered to what eternally is true. That what the creed calls the communion of the saints. That not capital S, those who've been designated by commissions, but just the those awakened members of the family of God who realize that they're actually included in his life. That those individuals across time and space, because if the cross defeated death, whether we're in a body or out of a body, we're not dead. So there's a cloud of witnesses, right? So these those that have gone before us, it's not as if, well, they're off the scene, so what they had to say means nothing to us, and now we can almost reform a faith in our own image,
Wow.
rather than, obviously we're still on a journey, we're still learning, we're still awakening. We've not fully awakened, but yet we also, our faith didn't originate with our birth. That it,
Yes.
it traces back. Yeah, it has ancient
Mhm.
roots that are valuable and meaningful, and I can glean from these and remain tethered to those without necessarily completely buying into each and everything they believed or thought, or whatever prejudices may inform their world, as much as we have prejudices that inform ours. But that we can form and reform
Mhm.
while remaining tethered. It does not require us to disconnect. I would
Yeah.
argue we can't. We are incapable of disconnecting from the roots of the Christian faith while then simultaneously trying to claim we are Christian.
Well, exactly, because if this is just ongoing expression and development of the body of Christ and the revelation of Christ, we we are not going to grow without our root system. And when we disconnect from the root system, we become unhealthy. It
Yep.
can't even support what's being developed and the fruit that's coming from that. So we need that, and we get the honor of carrying it forward while continuing to grow in what God is doing in unique expression throughout the body of Christ. That's beautiful. That is
And even
beautiful.
just allowing that sense of freedom for each person within that process
Mhm.
of again, part of it's just the tradition I came out of, and have really kind of re-engrafted back into amidst the beautiful, charismatic, spirit-filled experience that I was able to enjoy for the last, 15, 20 years. But has been, I have reinstituted use of the prayer book.
Nice.
Um, do I agree with everything that is listed in the prayer book? No. Would I phrase things some of the way they do? I even make little notations in mine that this language needs tweaked a little bit. I get what they're saying, but yet to me, by no means do I think anyone has to adopt this. It's been of
Right.
great beauty and benefit for my journey, but I
Yeah.
can't impose that on others.
Right.
But yet, what I also realize is I don't know how I can quote Saint Athanasius
Mm.
and Saint Hilary and Gregory of Nazianzus and all of these amazing figures endlessly,
Mhm. Mhm.
and then pretend that which forms them is an irrelevancy.
Right. Wow. Yeah.
I have to know them in their context, not adopt the context, but I have to at least acknowledge it.
Exactly. Exactly. Because God meets us exactly where we are in
Yep.
our own context,
Yep.
but brings revelation forth. And this is why embracing that and embracing one another, I'm just seeing such a breadth and life in it. This is a flourishing, growing, when we talk about a living body, we're talking about something organic that grows, that reproduces, that increases, that multiplies. And this is us together along with the ones that have gone before us, rooted and grounded in the traditions that were adopted that could support all this growth. It's beautiful. Yeah.
The um, but can I read something real quick?
Oh, please.
This is, I was reading this morning. That this is a quote from Saint Hilary of Poitiers. So we're talking early fourth to mid fourth century is
Mhm.
when he lives. Um, he's a French guy. His most famous work is in its honor of the Trinity. It's De Trinitate in Latin.
Mhm.
And just list, yeah. We must understand the Father and the Son according to the teaching of the divine scriptures, so that when we've learned to know them and become familiar with them, our words may become clearer. The eternity of God transcends places, times, appearances, and anything conceivable by the human mind. He's outside of all things, but yet within all things. He comprises all things, and yet is comprised by none. He does not change either by increase or decrease. He's invisible, incomprehensible, complete, perfect, and eternal. He does not know anything from elsewhere, but he himself is sufficient unto himself to remain what he is. The unbegotten one brought forth the Son from himself before all time, not from any pre-existing matter, because all things are through the Son, nor from nothing, because the Son is from him, nor as an ordinary birth, because there's nothing changeable or empty of God, not as a part that is divided, cut off, or extended, because God is incapable of incorporeal existence. Such things are characteristic of the flesh, according to the apostle, in Christ dwells all fullness of the Godhead bodily. I, there is nothing we are going to read by anyone who has written anything in the last 100 years that is going to come even close to the encapsulation of the Trinity in that paragraph. What do we do to ourselves when we throw this aside and call it irrelevant?
Yeah, really.
Or worse yet, dead religion, which is, uh, yeah.
Hubris. I mean, it's just
Yeah,
pride.
it really is.
It's just pride. Yeah, and that's beautiful. I love this. So we're embracing what's already been established that is so comprehensive and sweeping that we can build on that and continue to develop in that. And then we're also embracing the expression of the body in this time. So what's so amazing, Matt? We get everything. Isn't
Yep.
that beautiful? I mean, we
Yep.
get all of it. It's this banquet that we get to partake of, and it just goes on and on and on. It's just breathtaking, and we get to do that. We get to be that. We get to inhabit that, and then we get to walk in the expression that God is moving in us, continuing to grow, but while carrying all of those things. And we have to honor to receive something. We have to honor the person, the movement, that whatever camp that has flows through and has flowed through. So this is in that place of honor, we just are able to receive. When that archbishop went to the thing, he was honoring that
Yep.
expression and then could partake of it. And it was life to him. And that's beautiful. That is
And,
beautiful.
and I think it's significant that it was legitimate participation.
Yeah. Yeah.
It wasn't like the lip service politicians give to where you're more concerned with who's seeing you and how they're
Right.
perceiving you.
Right.
No, if anything, the means in which he engaged, he had something to lose in that encounter.
Right. Right.
Because there was a lot of people in that room, not just this reporter friend of his who knows his heart, cares about him, and is teasing him when she brings this up.
Right.
There very
Right.
well could have been other people in that room who are very quick to judge and
Exactly. You're
make
so
this a
bad
wounding
or
experience.
whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's so true. But isn't that whenever we're engaging in that way, there's a vulnerability in it.
Yep.
But when we're engaging with God, like who cares, right?
Yep.
Let the chips fall where they may. But there's something, and I feel like there's an invitation as we're embracing, there's an invitation from God to expand ourselves and then also be it's almost like a sign for others who have gotten entrenched and entrapped to kind of shake them up a little bit in correction and loving correction. But God is just there's such an invitation out of our entrenchment in our camps. It's great to celebrate where how God has moved through us and all of that. And I love what you're taking because I respect you so much because I know that as you've navigated these different, being a part of different expressions of the body of Christ and what God has done that. And then just even in practicality in a practice, in your practice, that you don't do that lightly. And then you carry it. There's honor and you carry it, but you were able to receive from because you honor. And I feel like there's so much dishonor that has been sown to one another currently, and then to our church fathers and mothers, that dishonor. And so, operating in that humility when we're truly suspending our, I don't know, our particular structures that we
Yep.
embrace as the thing, as this is what it means to me, but I'm looking at how it's been, what it's done for you. I can receive of that. and it's beautiful, and God always honors humility, and so we receive life when we do that. Yeah, it's
And
beautiful. Well, hello. Have you been feeling disconnected from God's love? Discover how to hear His voice and encounter His heart like you never have before in my brand new Marked by Love book. This transformative book equips you with the tools to deepen your relationship with God and be released in your purpose. Nab your copy now.
absolutely. And I think there is something, and I don't mean this to be a criticism. I am an American. I love being an American. I'm grateful to have been born here and the freedoms I get to experience.
Mhm.
But there is a catch-22 with that. There's the other shoe does drop in that our concept of freedom and free market industry and innovation is wonderful. I
Mhm.
mean, we are I believe are in Colorado at the moment. I'm in Virginia, and
Right,
we're talking in real time.
right,
Yet technically, I am 2 hours in the future.
right,
I mean, this is mind-bending stuff to me.
right. Sure.
And so I'm aware these things exist primarily because of that American sense of ingenuity.
Mhm.
One of the consequences, though, is we devalue that which is old. Um,
Yes.
if when you're in Europe, you cannot walk into a church. So if you're there for a wedding, let's say this person's not really even, a person of faith, just friends getting married, so they're at the church.
Right.
You have to walk through mortality to get in the building because the cemetery surrounds the church.
True.
We
Yeah,
put them outside of town
that is
where
right. Yeah.
we don't have to look at them.
Hmm.
We don't want to be reminded of that. We want that separated and disconnected from our everyday experience. There's something about not wanting to acknowledge you don't know everything because someone's going to come after you who's going to correct mistakes you made. They're going to identify things you did that weren't quite right. That we build on one another.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
we're moving forward, but with our past. We're taking it with us.
Yeah.
It's not something we scrap behind us. Where I live in Virginia, it's a very rural community. Farming is the number one industry.
Mhm.
And then I would guess probably working for Walmart or the school division is number two. I mean, so we're a very small community. Within a stone's throw, I could probably pick 10 to 15 different churches to attend.
Wow.
And I phrase that at purpose, pick them.
Right. Right.
Like I'm at a buffet and I can just smorgasbord who I want to connect with and who I don't. That's a foreign experience to most of the world.
Yes. Yes.
Your faith tradition is what is in your area.
Mhm.
We lived in New Mexico for the first 4 years of my life. I was born in Delaware while my parents were back east for summer break. Dad was a school teacher. And so we had to go back west to New Mexico for when school resumed. So I spent the first 4 years there until Dad got a job on the East Coast. In New Mexico, we were in Debaca County, New Mexico. Fort Sumner is the county seat. It's where Billy the Kid was shot by Pat Garrett. That's its only claim to fame.
Yeah.
Um, and it is the only town in the county.
Wow.
The high school, middle school, and elementary school were all one building. My father was the music teacher and band director for the entire school district, and he still had time in his schedule.
Wow.
It's a small area. We
Mhm.
were Episcopalian while we
Right.
lived in New Mexico, not because we actually were
Right.
Episcopalian, but because we weren't Catholic. And there were two choices of churches in the entire county. You could be Catholic or Episcopalian. So we were Episcopalian.
Yeah.
That's an exception to the American rule, though, right? Largely, we have all this variety, and it becomes I'm going to find what reflects my wishes, my wants, my
Mhm.
unique outlook.
Mhm.
And of course, just as a buffer, I by no means mean that we should just have this dictated to us and that you have no consent or no participation or ownership of choices. We certainly do. But
Right.
it can go so far as to, well, their service is too long, so I'm not going to go there.
Mhm.
They talk about this specific subject too much here, so I'm not going to go there anymore. I don't like the music here, so I'm going to go over here. And it becomes disconnective and marketing and
Mm.
mission statements and vision statements, and it ceases being a family
Wow.
and it becomes a corporation with
Yeah.
a pastor CEO
Hmm.
who pretty much is just responsible for keeping the numbers up and keeping everyone appeased. And that is a foreign experience to the history of the church.
Yeah. Yeah. Truly.
And
Yeah.
we're reaping the consequence of that now, and lowercase c consequence. Let's not make too big of a deal out of it. But in what reconstruction, rethinking looks like
Mhm.
here in the
Right.
States, it is different than what like you hear from David Hewitt and others in like Scotland and the UK and in Western Europe. It's a very different thing here because we don't even quite know what we're deconstructing.
Oh, wow.
Um, we've lived in Christendom,
Hmm.
the imagery surrounding us,
Right.
from being in a courthouse and seeing giant colossal Moses holding commandments above the judge
Right.
to our universal celebration of Christmas.
Hmm.
Um, we've when we make, and this is where I think this started as a ramble, but I think it's coming in for a landing. What, what I think has happened is in rejecting the old
Mm.
by forfeiting the sacred for the novel,
Yeah.
we basically turned what was sacred,
Mm.
what was holy and pure and a tangible in this realm demonstration of what heaven on earth is supposed to be, what that
Right.
means,
Hmm.
into at worst a punchline,
Mm.
and maybe at best a means of marketing manipulation
Mm.
that is pitting you against others. Because if you're not going to my church, but you're going to their church,
Right.
that's taking money away from my system. That's taking influence away from my system. We're reaping some of that, which I think is interesting too, and that a lot of those in the States, particularly those 20 and 30-year-olds who are
Hmm.
rethinking, um, they are not generally turning to like hardcore atheism or even agnosticism. They're turning to highly ordered, highly structured Christian faith traditions. You have these Southern Baptist non-denominational megachurch kids all of a sudden converting to Episcopalianism,
Right.
and it's just what is it they're finding in that
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
they felt was absent or was missing from their lives. Just it fascinates me.
Beautiful. And I mean, we all need roots.
Yep.
We all need roots. And that's rooted and grounded in God, but how is he expressed throughout? The church it also transcends time. It's
Yep.
interesting as you were talking about going to the cathedral and surrounded by graves, right? That Americans in particular, we just like, I stuff that over there. But and all these headstones and things that you're walking through. Um, um, and I just heard the Lord say, what appears dead is not dead. And so his church is eternal. People are
Yep.
eternal. The cloud of witnesses that we will all join at one point is eternal. And so there's a voice that can filter through and should be embraced. So we're going back and picking up old treasures. You say, what are these 20, 30-year-olds leaving mainline church denominations, whatever, and going to more formalized, uh, maybe more ancient sects and things? What are they finding? Well, they're going back and finding treasure that
Yep.
brings life that we've arrogantly dismissed. So we've
Yep.
we've uprooted ourselves in favor of some sort of form and some sort of formula and some sort of doctrine.
Yep.
And the life that flowed through the roots that have already been planted, that we have always been invited to partake of. We miss that. And so we're just reconnecting back to the root system that the God has already formulated through the church, through the ancient church, and then and that brings life, right? And
Yep.
so that is, and it's fascinating because a lot of those reads, when you go back, you know, it's not an easy read. These are not memes,
Yep.
right? Okay, you did not read a meme Uh, but you read something that was so chock full of nutrients, chock full of life. Like any one of those sentences, like pause, let's just chew on that a bit. Okay, next sentence. There's so much richness. And so we have forsaken what's been rich in favor of junk food in a way.
Yep.
Or maybe junkier food. I want to say everything that word is right, but we get everything, and so I feel like this is a beautiful invitation. And the other thing is it forces us to discipline ourselves and our attention. Right?
Yep.
It takes a bit to focus and dive in because these are deep things. It's not a one sentence, one liner, boom. It is some richness there. So, which means that requires of us to maybe discipline ourselves a little bit more, which is good for us. Uh,
Absolutely.
mhm, mhm,
Yeah. You're talking my language, sister. The the propensity to label as religion
mhm.
anything that requires our labor, anything that requires our participation,
Yes.
is so problematic to me.
Right.
It's we. It makes me think of the allegory of the person, their whole community is flooded and they're sitting on their roof, and a boat comes by and says, "We're here to rescue you," and they say, "No, it's okay. God's going to rescue me. I don't need help. God will take care of this." It makes me think of that just in the sense of that we, in being included in this and being able to participate and engage with this, the ultimate goal is that we learn to love well.
Yay. Now you're speaking my language.
Well, and that is going to take not works, but it will take labor. It's
Yes.
going to be times where I have to tell myself, now, Matt, you are knee-jerk reacting to something here that is not what actually transpired. It is not productive for you to be getting irritated by this. Let it go. And it's hard. I don't want to let it go. I
Yes.
want to make an issue of it. I want to prove I'm right.
Mhm.
And that, to term that as religion, to term that as, when, for me, the delineation point is, if I believe I have to do this to be loved, if I believe I have to do this to be included or to be accepted, it is then a tool of manipulative religion that is harmful and damaging to us and our perception of the character of God.
Yeah.
But if these practices, if these formational tools, whether we call them worship or prayer or lectio divina or whatever the case might be, whatever we're using to better understand who we are in Him,
Mhm.
to devalue that,
Mhm.
it is it breaks my heart because I think it leaves people locked into thinking patterns
Mhm.
because they are so scared of being exposed to something new.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've noticed, and I would really appreciate your thoughts on this. I've noticed that as I get to know folks who have been through some form of reconstructive journey,
Mhm.
they still tend to fight with the same weapons they fought with before. So,
Truly.
so like if you came out of a sacramental tradition and you were rethinking, you
Mhm.
still come at this with like quotations being the answer to every problem. Let me just cite someone else who's an expert who said this, and then everything is okay.
Mhm.
If you
Mhm.
came out of a low church or free church,
Right.
non-denominational, unstructured setting, it all is about how you feel and like what the emotional trigger is for you in the midst of the. So if it makes you feel bad or it makes you in any way uncertain that you're loved and cared for and protected, you can't even consider it. Head goes in the sand because that is too. It risks the new worldview you've created.
Right.
And it makes me think of like in medicine or in addiction theory, where you just kind of like trade one addiction for another. You've given up one problematic pattern and you've picked up a new one.
Exactly.
but it's still a pattern. It's still a problem.
Well, I mean, this is all sort of self-protection and protecting my territory, and the territory may look a little different, but it's still the same mechanism
Yep.
that we're using. This defensiveness, because just because you feel uncomfortable doesn't mean it's wrong. So not every discomfort is harmful.
Yep.
And right, so sometimes in order to grow, we have to embrace discomfort.
Yep.
And sometimes that means doing the work of discerning in this new representation, or maybe this ancient representation that now is new to me, right? As I'm engaging with that. So this part is I'm tracking with that. This part is making me feel a little bit uncomfortable. Well, what's going on with me now? It's not everything. I don't you don't buy stuff wholesale,
Yep.
but we have to do the work of discernment, engaging with Holy Spirit as we're engaging with that to figure out, okay, what is eternal truth? Okay, so what is this rattling in me that's
Yep.
making me feel uncomfortable? Oh, is this challenging a presupposition that I'm not even aware that I have and that I'm holding on to be secure and maybe be right? Okay. Or is this something that I need to put before the Lord and say, Lord, what do I need to give up here? What's of you, and what's not of you? Because everything we encounter can be used to mold us in the image and likeness of Christ, to bring out the fruit, to unveil us. And individually and universally. I mean, this is how God is handling his kids all the time. And so uh, we have to be willing to be uncomfortable until whatever is true is just true and the rest falls away. And now we've just upgraded not only in our understanding, in our wisdom, but also upgraded in how we operate as sons and daughters in conformity to Christ. So I think it's all that, and it's really interesting, and you know this so well, Matt, that as human beings in our fallenness, we do tend to operate out of the same mechanisms, just maybe the circumstances have changed or the particulars have changed, but God is after the mechanisms. It's all the way of love, always all the way of love. And so what's rattling, sometimes it just needs to rattle in there until it just falls off, right?
Yep.
Because love is not touchy. So where I'm feeling touchy, I'm feeling arrogant, and I feel like, okay, and I need to put up my hackles and be right here. Well, there may be righteousness in that, but the attitude of being right in it
Yep.
and having to defend my territory, my ground, my perspective, rather than offering up my perspective and let the chips fall where they may, um, that requires a security that is based on in Him, that is based on something eternal that does not rattle, that is just solid. And so this is just being being willing, honestly, to be shaken up
Yep. Yep.
by the old, by the new, whatever's coming in our radar screen, and really taking that to the Lord. Okay, what's with me that needs to go here? That
Yep.
just kind of needs to die, needs to fry and die. And what's of you that is really solid? And this is how we continue to grow and grow and grow and grow. Yeah, that's brilliant. Hmm.
I, I think when we look at even like the nature of subjective and objective experience and what is concretely like that objective of a pencil is a pencil. There is no debate about that. It is a pencil. That there is an it is finished element to our experience. That whatever enmity was there in our minds, as Colossians puts it, has been dealt with. Whatever
Mhm.
degree we needed reconciliation, for God was never disconnected from us, but to whatever degree we needed reconciled to Him,
Mhm.
that's accomplished. It is an it is finished, accomplished fact.
Yes.
Yet we also are being conformed into an image. And
Mhm.
that conformed is an active verb.
Mhm.
It's not a past tense event. It's a perpetual, ongoing encounter where every time we encounter glory,
Mhm.
Every time the majesty of who he is shines just a lumen brighter.
Mhm. Mhm.
There is something that was dead in us that, yes, was made alive through the resurrection. But it didn't feel alive to me. It sure really felt dead to me. But in that moment, it comes to life.
Yeah.
I theologian wise, I really enjoy the works of Tom Torrance, and he does more stuff navigating space and time and the impact our perception of time has on how we perceive God than anybody else writes on. And he hits on this a lot, that of all the names that God could have given Moses,
Hmm.
I am.
Yeah.
Not I
Right.
was, not I will be, no conditional statements, just I am.
Yeah.
So this perpetually present tense, Father, Son, and Spirit,
Yeah.
ever in union, ever in tandem, always in the now,
Mm-hmm.
enters time for our benefit.
Mm-hmm. Because
And
that's what
yet,
we're
yeah, then what do we want to do? We want to create a timeline.
right.
We want to set up an it is finished chart that, well,
Hmm.
everything was settled here, and therefore anything that I see manifest here, any
Hmm.
sorrows or miseries or hurts or traumas, I don't know what to do with those because it's finished. So I'll either put my head in the sand,
Right.
pretend they're not there, or I will
Mhm.
actually blame the person feeling them,
Oh, yikes.
as somehow not believing enough, not having enough faith, as if we can originate faith.
Right.
Yeah, rather than, no, both of these things
Yeah.
are real.
Yeah.
What you're feeling and the hurt that is being healed. The
Yes.
we act as if we don't realize there's contradictions in every facet of our lives.
Right. Right.
So why would we not expect them to be as we walk out a journey? We're going to encounter the contradictions there. God does not send them. He doesn't create them to mess with us.
Right.
Life just happens, but
Mhm.
we walk through them, and little by little, we are conformed into the image.
Beautiful.
I my eschatology is ever in flux. But I do wonder if whatever the return of Jesus is,
Mhm.
if our goal is to learn to love well, if we're being conformed into the image, who
Mhm.
was the exact representation,
Mhm.
to whatever degree there is that physical return,
Mhm. Mhm.
my in my heart of hearts, I believe we will not be able to visibly tell the difference
Mhm.
between those of us who are born after the firstborn of our brethren, as Romans 8 puts it, and him. That we have so conformed into the image of love that we are indistinguishable. Always distinction, but
Right. Right.
indistinguishable in
That's
sight.
Christ.
That the reflection, the image is so perfected that we can't tell apart.
So, oh, that's so meaty. And boy, I can't tell you how much that is resonating. And it's interesting because this is not glorifying human effort, human will, human whatever, but it is glorifying humanity
Yep.
because how masterful is God is the Spirit of God at conforming the sons and daughters of God into the exact that image, that representation of Christ as Christ in this world. And so we're in the it's true and it's being worked out. We're working this out with that reverential fear and trembling because it is completed and we're working it out. And we get to partner with God in that so that whatever you're right, whatever the physical return of Christ, we are radiating that expression in our flavor because there is distinction, right? We'll be able to recognize Matt in glorified form and Catherine in glorified form. And this is a constant outworking, not because we're not loved, it's because we are so loved that anything less than that the true authenticity of how we were created in the image and likeness that won't be left and we'll be that and we get to be that and that is such a a hope and such a challenge because this requires death to everything that's not that.
Yep. Yeah. The death is not an enemy. It's a neutral thing. It's like change.
Mm.
Um, if somebody, if my wife comes home early, walks in and pushes me out of my chair, that would be change. It would not be a good one.
Right.
But it would be change from my current state sitting here in the
Right.
chair. Um, Death is neutral. There are some things that do in fact need to die.
Yeah.
And we need to let them go.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, there was something you said right at the beginning there. Yeah, don't remember what it was. I should have written it down because it was really good. Um, but yeah, regardless, when we get pulled, oh, that's what it was. You were talking about when the incarnation. He becomes human. He takes on human form. I think like Shrek with the ogres or like onions, they have layers on. There's a layer to this where it yes, he becomes human. I take nothing away from that.
Mhm.
He becomes humanity.
Yeah. Yes.
He
Yes.
encompasses the entire human condition into himself.
Mm.
And so now, I think it's Ephesians that now he is all in all. He has filled
Yeah.
all things. That there is nothing that is human that is not also now oozing divinity.
Wow.
That is just saturated with that presence.
Mhm.
And so, what then is if we just accepts the scripture at face value with that to the best degree our minds can wrap around that, if we just accept that, what then is the consequence for
Mhm.
being wrong? To be loved harder? It's like every time we miss the mark, every time we operate out of our trauma or our confusion, the consequence isn't this threat of separation that you can't separate from what you've just declared as all in all,
Right.
but you can love the person harder. You can hug them, surround them, envelop them in not an oppressive way, but in a way that I think of like a weighted blanket almost. That
Yeah.
something that provides support and structure and safety until you so feel that love, you're able to let go
Wow.
of those hurts and pains. And um, if the biggest thing we have to quote unquote fear is to keep learning, um, how much have we missed in the infighting and in the desire to be sure that we've articulated our positions just right? But no, he became humanity. The entire matter has been settled.
Yeah.
It's now just awakening,
Yeah.
um,
Wow.
learning
Mm.
to love well.
Yay. I love that. That's that's beautiful. That's glorious. Wow. Well, I can't believe we're kind of at the top of our time. Did it feel like we just got started? That was so good. Whew. Any final things that you want to leave us with? This has been so yummy. This has been so good.
What I would say the same thing that I have been telling myself for the last couple of years, that when you have the opportunity to encounter other brethren on this journey who are
Mm.
coming from streams that are not your own, before you make any kind of a judgment or an assumption about why they do something or why they don't do something, seek understanding before you seek to discern whether you agree or not. Um, just understand where they're coming from and what motivates the thinking. Because if we can understand each other, we can learn how to love through the misunderstandings. And we've lost that. We've gotten much better at articulating our point and really hitting hard back as a reflex anytime someone comes at us with something that to us resembles um, a pattern or a way of doing things that we don't see God moving in. Well, let me understand. Just even with the simple question, what do you believe God is doing in your life in this process? And hear what they say.
Wow.
And You don't have to adopt it. You don't even have to approve of it or agree it's a good thing, but you at least understand it then.
Yes.
If the church is ever going to be one, it's not going to become one because we all convert to one denomination.
Oh,
It's going to
hello.
become one because that no longer matters to us, that we're able to glean and learn from one another and value and respect that we all possess the exact same Spirit of God. And I am only accountable for what he tells me. I am not accountable to discern what he is telling others.
It's so good. Wow, that's wise and that's beautiful. Wow. Wow. Well, thank you, Matt. This has been wonderful. I look forward to doing it again sometimes. It feels like there needs to be a part two.
No, it was a blast. It always is. You create such a kind, welcoming atmosphere. I appreciate it. It's always a good time.
Yeah, well, thank you. Well, thank you. Well, everyone, make sure you share, make sure you allow this to kind of grapple with it, to make you a better you, make you more loving, right? And more open to what your neighbor, how your neighbor is worshiping all the different ways that Christ is represented in them. So wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
I'm looking forward to having you come back on again. This was great.
Anytime.
Wonderful. All right, everybody, share, have a wonderful day. Do all the things to share this beautiful, beautiful message. And everybody enjoy your day. Love you guys and love you, Matt. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Perspectives with Catherine Toon. For additional information and resources, please visit catherinetoon.com.